Greetings everybody. This is the CSS tutorial for custom themes. First we're going to build out all of our files and folders. We're going to need a CSS folder, an image folder, we're going to need a JavaScript folder, and this will all be contained and coordinated with an index.html. So let's go ahead and use the CLI to get these files and folders put together. We're not using anything complicated because there's no login, so we're just building a static site for this example. Now we're going to tie in a style sheet named style within the CSS folder. Here we go. Let's get started with the hello world. This HTML is built from Bootstrap samples, so what I'm going to do for this example is just go to their page, get the examples, and copy some HTML components and paste them into our example so that we can get moving fast. Because our main point is a CSS lesson, not how is HTML built. So we're pasting the banner and a couple of the card components, and then I'll bring in a nav in a little bit, and let's just delete all this other stuff we don't need. It's not going to be useful for our purposes today. So once again, I'm going to go to the Bootstrap 5 navigation examples, copy it out of the inspector element, and I'm going to paste it into our example so we can get moving here. So once again, this is just a static site. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but when you do things like this, the banner is going to be overlapped by the nav. So margin top is something that I'm going to kind of toy around with in the inspector element. Actually, padding top, sorry. And then from there, you can see I'm doing some trial and error to see which one fits, because I don't want them to overlap. And so let's go ahead and solve this problem right now. Let's get into the CSS. Let's say, hey, that container, we need to go ahead and get it 80 pixels from the top. All right, I also want to name the banner so that I can do some tricks to it with the CSS. And as you can see here, I'm going to apply an image to it that I've downloaded. I'm going to store this image locally, so no big tricks here. Just a background image that applies here. And we obviously need to apply it to the banner. There we go. And so let's go ahead and talk about what we need to do to this background image. We don't want it to repeat. We want it to cover the entire banner. Let's position it a little bit higher so we can see those flowers. And let's bring in some fonts from Google Fonts. If you're not familiar with Google Fonts, you can import or kind of even install the fonts for free. These are really neat. We used to not be able to do this, so be thankful, because it used to be like 12 fonts that were available only. Now you can import whatever you want. It's this easy. As you can see, Google even provides you with how to call it. So I'm going to tell it all my styles for H1s need to be this style that I've imported, or H2s, H3s, all the headings basically. And I'll do a couple. As you see now, all the headings are that cool font. And let's go ahead and take a look at how this HTML is built so I can start applying some styles and some images. Okay, we don't need the SVG. I'm going to put an image here. So this is just for our purposes. Nothing crazy. I'm just going to use a flower image that I have, and I need to apply a class to it because we're going to do some CSS tricks to it. Okay, so the tricks we're going to do to the thumbnails. We want to make sure that they look the right size. We want to make sure that they are grayscaled. It's just a consistency look that we're going to be utilizing the filter. So we'll go ahead and apply these to all of the topic thumbs. No matter what the image is, it'll always have this kind of consistent look as long as we apply the topic thumb class to it. And I'll just do the same thing to the other option, or the other example here. Yeah. Okay, so let's just adjust it so it'll fit and look nice. Alright, this is what it looks like now. Not too shabby. It will get us past the first theme for desktop. And let's go ahead and get a little bit more fonts installed here. I want to do a couple more things. So I'll apply a background color for this theme right now. The F8s is not a huge change. It's a little more of a kind of going towards the beige. Alright, and we want the nav bar to have the same links, the same fonts as well. So we'll apply those. Alright, we also want to get these items down here with some stylings because that kind of looks strange. So we'll see what a class has been applied to them by Bootstrap, and then we'll be able to apply the font to what we're dealing with as well. So anything within FlexRoast that's strong or that's an anchor tag is now going to have that. Cool. Integrate the data design to HTML body tag. This is a hierarchy concept. So if I apply this data design dataset option 1 to my body tag, now anything that body tag data design attribute is now going to dictate a ton of stuff. So if I say option 1, now the hierarchy begins. I will start applying these to all of my styles that I have in this, all the things that are going to be changed based on different themes. You'd be surprised, there's really not a lot of things that change, a lot of background colors, text, some filters. But to make a theme, it's a lot of the basic stuff stays the same. We're just talking about the mainly the colors and fonts. There'll be some sizing and whatnot, but I'm going to apply the option 1, and now look what happens. I make a copy of option 1. I change. Now I'm going to go for option 2. So basically, like what I've done is I just copy and pasted option 1 and made option 2. I changed the background image to grass BG, so it's a little bit different. But as you can see now, I just copy and pasted option 1 and now option 2. Now, based on how CSS works, that hierarchy in the body tag with the data design, if that attribute says option -1, I will be showing one thing. If it says option -2, completely something else. Even the background image for the banner will be different. And so we're going to get really into this. I'm going to start changing fonts, font colors, background colors, everything that you can see here that's represented will be different based on that one value in the body tag, whether it's option 1 or option 2. But it's a small, detailed change in that body tag will dictate everything based on CSS hierarchy. Here we go. And off we go. This is going to be the second look, the option 2. Let's get this a quick lesson about putting filters into something. If you have an image that you want to kind of play with and it's kind of decreed that that's what that whole area background looks like, it's going to affect the text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that banner text outside of it so it's not affected by the filtering I'm going to be using. This makes for a little bit of strange CSS. So you don't always have to do this. It really depends on what you want. I'm putting in a worse scenario. So I'm actually taking the text out and I'm positioning it on top of my background image, which has a whole bunch of filters coming. I don't want the filters to affect my text, so it needs to live in the Z level, position absolute, on top of the banner. And it will cause issues. So we're going to follow through with how to fix things like that. I'm telling it here I want that banner text to be white with it as long as it's option 2. That's the FFF. I'm telling it anything like the header and the paragraphs, all that needs to be white. Actually, I'm going to turn it to like kind of a gold. So now we've got a gold color for the banner text, as you can see. And just set those up. Perfect. Now let's just trial and error it a little bit. I want to make sure that this thing works. Now keep in mind, this banner text is going to be a different color than the option 1. So you're going to be changing everything. There you go. You see the difference? This gold color, it looks like a completely different site. Now let's go get some more fonts. Bring in here. Let's just go ahead and do it. You can actually integrate all the fonts into one request import, or you can kind of put them on top of each other. Let's do some more hunting down for some regular text within the Google Fonts area. I'm looking for something I can use for my common text, not titling. Something legible, something normal. This looks fine. So let's import this. Overpass. Let's bring it in. Overpass is going to be available for option 2, just the standard body, not the titling. There, a little more legible. There we go. We're just going to kind of tie these all together so we don't have to write things twice. If you see that it can be represented somewhere else, we move it. And that way it'll encompass more things. We don't want to ever write anything twice. We don't have to. Okay, let's go ahead and get the theme picker together. It's just a little panel with a couple of radio buttons. And each radio button, when you click one of the radio buttons, it will just change the theme from one to the other. I don't know if you're familiar with my portfolio. I do this on the portfolio. I have about 4 themes that you can choose from, and then I actually save these to local storage, so when the individual comes back, when the user comes back, the theme is wherever they left it at. So as long as they don't clear out their cache, we'll go ahead and save the theme what they chose here from our theme picker. And traditionally, I would just do an input type radio, but they're kind of simplistic and they don't really look great. So I have taken something off the internet that just kind of stylizes my radio buttons a little bit better. As you can see, it starts out with a label that wraps around the input tag, and then within that label, I also have a span with a class of checkmark. So look, we've done the HTML. Let's move on to the CSS. Now the CSS is there's a lot of CSS for this really pretty radio button. So let me be the first to say, if you want to copy and paste the CSS for this radio button on, as opposed to type it all up, I do not blame you. Let's spell global wrong and keep moving. So as you can see, this is the line item UL and where I'll be positioning my palette buttons. I have them organized in a line item. And I'm kind of gauging at this point where I want them on the left side of the page. And it's just going to be something that lives there where they can always select the theme. And here's the class checkmark that helps disguise the standard default input type radio buttons and brings in something a little more, pretty. Got a lot of styling to it, and it is a tricky move. A lot of people do this. Actually, almost everybody I've ever worked for, nobody uses the radio button default. It's just that ugly. So everybody's got some method to make it look nice. It's one of those things. I don't know why the HTML standards don't just change, but they did. Okay, so as you can see, we've got this all built out, and we have we're going to be applying, actually here, a class to the label, radio container. And then within that, on check, we're going to fire off update design when the radio is clicked. And the class, we're going to, coincidentally, when it's hidden, it can be checked, but it will be hidden. What will be visible will be the checkmark span tag that will represent the button instead. So it's confusing. The span tag is what you see. The input type radio is what you click. And let's go ahead and fashion what that radio container is going to look like. A lot of stuff. Bear with me. And this is just making it so all the different browsers will know what to do in case. Which personally probably not necessary, but we'll get it done. And it is rather nice to have some comments within your CSS. It helps guide people through and catches people's eyes when they're looking for something, because it does kind of all look the same unless you do some labels. Now that plus symbol that says input value option -1 plus check mark, the plus sign means it's the very next one, right next to what you called. So it's the first check mark, basically. That's what the plus sign means, the one right next to the one you called. And let's go ahead and create our JavaScript. So this is going to be the functionality that we're going to need to get the theme clicker to work. So I'm going to tie in the functionality file to the index.html. Let's let it know what our design options are. We only have two of them, option 1 and option 2 in this case. Anyway, so let's tell it design right now is a variable that is just an empty string. We're going to ask it, hey, in your local storage, do you have a design saved? Because if so, we're going to use the one that was saved. And if not, we're going to use the first one, which is option 1, within the design options array. Okay, so if there is one, so let's go ahead and say design equals whatever we saved, which is in local storage. And then we'll apply that right here. Now, body, set attribute, data design. Obviously, there's another way to do this too. You can do data set, but I'm using set attribute this time. No big deal. So from there, if there is something saved in the local storage, we shall fire off whatever was saved, and then we will put that as selected within the checked value for the one that represents that, the input button that represents that, the input radio button. So if someone clicks one of the radio buttons, on the other hand, the update design function is fired off. And so let's go ahead and declare whatever that value is, the new temp design, because we're going to apply that. So if someone clicks it, we want to know which one is now checked out of the input that has the name theme. So there's only two of them. And what's the value of the one that was clicked? That is going to be the one we will now be storing in local storage. We will also be updating all of our design options so that they have the selection option. It'll tell them that this is the one that was selected. And as you can see, we're starting to work. I just got to get temp design copied, and so now when we change it, it will actually change the design. Okay. Here we go. Let's go ahead and see. Yep, we are now switching themes by clicking our new stylized radio buttons back and forth. Congratulations, we have a theme picker. Now let's watch and see what exactly is the hierarchy doing. Do you see over here on the body tag on the left where it says option 2? Watch me click. Now it says option 1. Option 2. Option 1. That is what's changing the themes. If you change that value, It means everything to the CSS below. So let's see how this works on mobile devices. Okay, it doesn't look great. The color of the text is hiding underneath the picture. These buttons are all out of whack. Nothing looks good in mobile. So let's go ahead and declare some font sizes so we can get a hold of it. A lot of that is going to be fixed by the sizing of the font as opposed to the sizing of the image. So let's get everything on one page first so the sizing is under control as opposed to the defaults. Now I also want to mention, when you start grabbing fonts from Google Fonts, you will have an array of different sizes. Some of them will look great, and some of them will be too big or not big enough, and so they never are consistent. The fonts just are made by individuals, and they're never going to match. So depending on what you choose, they'll take up different space. So let's write some responsive stuff to fix this for mobile. Now, at media is what you do to say, hey, my screen's smaller than normal. Like, I only have the max width of 768, which is your standard mobile size. What happens then? I need to, make sure that this thing configures to fit that. And the thing is, we've got this thing called class lead, which is screwing all the works up. So let's resize this for mobile. So within the max width, if a device only has a max width of 768 in the screen, and the class is .lead, I want to make it smaller font. The 0.75 sounds good. So now we don't have a huge font anymore, and it fits. You see what I'm saying? When it goes to mobile, we switch the size of the font right there based on the media. Now also, you can't read anything because it's illegible because the background image is covering it, so we've swapped it out. I mean, now we've got some white text, so that's good. Let's add, I'm going to go into as you can see, I'm adding a linear gradient in the dev console and kind of seeing, hey, does this help? I can change the darkness of the image over here in the console, and now I can read the text better. So let's apply what I screwed around with in the dev console and say I want that image, within mobile, I want that image to have a dark background because I can't read anything. There you go. Background image has got a linear gradient now. Obviously, we want to switch all the text. And I think I'll probably move that color. It probably won't affect it because it's going to be in bannerTxt. Let's just get this all out of here and apply it down here below. Everything we want white. The lead, the banner, the tag, the link. Those all need to be white. You see what I'm saying? We're good. Now we can. It's legible. We've changed the color, or downplayed the color so we can read it. It's more legible now. Anyway, so let's move forward with what's next. That theme palette is a mess on the left. On mobile, it's like in the wrong spot. Okay, so in desktop, it's 13% from the top of the screen. Let's go ahead and move it. I don't care about this other stuff, but I don't need it 13. Let's say 50. So now it'll be halfway down the screen. There we go. Better. So now it looks better on mobile. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and do some testing for all the responsive. You're going to find some surprises here, especially with the way the text is put together. Now that we took the text out of where it originally was residing and put it in position absolute, it just blasts. There we go. The runoff right off the page. So that was us when we took out that text and put it on top. This is what we get. So one of your worst scenarios is one of these when it's not confined because it's living in an absolute position. So it goes right over that column 6. So we got to fix this. If it's not being able to confine to its column, let's go ahead and tell it what can we work with that will make it fit. So in the dev console, I'm typing max width. Say, is 80 good? 80%? No, it's still too wide. What about 60? 65 maybe. Yeah, 65 width max works for mobile. So let's tell it, within the mobile, I need you to stay kind of small because it doesn't fit. chances are it's not going to fit for anything. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of labeling, some comments to let everybody know. All right, so it's looking better, but you can see we're just blasting off the side again. This is something that we're just going to have to do all of it. It's going to be a global. Every theme and bannerTxt needs to be this width. So I'm going to do the similar as what I did above. Is my global things for all themes will be above, and then I start doing the themes individually below the global scope. That way they'll have hierarchy. So if they override the global scope, then they override it and it'll be fine. I'm testing all the sizes of the different screens now. Here in a second you can see all these little mistakes that they're just not sized correctly on the different in the different sizes of the screen. So we're going to just be adjusting those. Now you can do tracking and kerning. You can do the size of the font. You can obviously do the width. What it looks like here is this is a column 6, so it's only half the width of what it's supposed to be anyway. So I'm going to change that to 12. Unfortunately, I changed the wrong one, so I'll come back and fix that. But I fixed this here to 12. So instead of 6, it's going to be 12, which means the grid system means that this goes all the way across the page as opposed to halfway. 6 is only halfway. And let's go ahead and spice this up. This needs to have a row around any kind of column. So based on everything I've ever known about Bootstrap, you're better off wrapping your rows in columns. So I don't know, that's going to be my move. So now I'm going to realize here that all my screen widths need to have this text option here. This needs to be, every theme needs to be having this. So I'm bringing it out here. Maybe a little bit larger. Yeah, here we go. So now like they're starting to look a little bit better. And as you can see, you got to really kind of design for everything. You got to design for your desktop. You got to design for your mobile. It will not look the same on different things. It will fail you. So use the dev tools and look here. This is what I did with the Excel 12. So let me get that one back to 6. This is what the difference between 6 and 12, everybody, for columns. As you can see. Yeah, that's my mistake. I'll have to swing in and fix it. Right there. Okay. So let's just get this back to the size it needs to be and we'll be done with the lesson. There we go. It's all good, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the lesson.